This weekend, some critics, not big fans, but the seats are filled nonetheless. And on the screen, some new kinds of dinosaurs. Odyssey reporter Mike Simpson with KNX has more.
You're going to see real feathered dinosaurs in all of their stores. Very, very, very happy.
Yeah, you heard him right. Feathers on those dinosaurs, the way we now know that many of them look. Steve Bersani is a paleontologist, author, and was the consultant for this movie, Jurassic World. He says this was his goal, get something a little more accurate on the screen, but they have been getting some things right with these films so far.
Raptor dinosaurs were very smart. They were probably in the mammalian zone of intelligence.
And the T-Rex, that jaw strength, it was enough to fight through a car if, of course, they had Jeeps back then. His latest book, The Rise and Reign of Mammals, you can learn who came after the dinosaurs, from mammoths and saber-toothed cats, just a couple 100 million years apart there.
If you're planning on spending the weekend with a good book, this might pique your interest. 19-year-old Oakland author Layla Motley has just released her debut novel, and she's become the youngest writer ever to be picked for Oprah's book club. CBS's Kathy Novak has more.
As Oprah Winfrey describes it, Night Crawling is a soul-searching portrait of survival and hope, written by an incredible new talent.
It doesn't feel like she's talking about me, so it's definitely kind of a mind warp.
Layla Motley is grateful that her book about a young black woman will be in the hands of so many readers.
Often we are, as a culture, collectively uncomfortable with recognizing the vulnerability of black girls and black women.
The 2016 sex abuse scandal involving the Oakland Police Department inspired the story, and the former Oakland Youth Poet Laureate calls her novel an ode to the city.
A lot of the time, when outsiders talk about Oakland, it is very binary and one-dimensional, and I wanted this book to show parts of the cities that I think we don't often get to hear about.
The first book club discussion happens online on Monday. Kathy Novak, KCBS.
The Mars rover Perseverance is still going strong after almost 16 months on the Red Planet and also picking up a hitchhiker. It's been there, and the rover's controllers at JPL in Pasadena now think of its traveling companion, a rock, as a sort of pet rock. Officials say it hasn't caused any harm or it's not interfering with the rover's movements during its journey. Instead, it's just being carried more than 5 miles from the spot where it first hitched a ride. Time now for a look at your money. And for that, we're Jeff Ellis.
Consumers have become less generous about tipping since the pandemic ended. Ted Rossman at creditcards.com says fewer people say they always tip restaurant servers and others.
Inflation is squeezing people, giving them less extra money to tip.
Some consumers may have felt that a tip was not deserved.
A lot of service industry businesses are understaffed and perhaps not providing the best service, and that may be hurting tips as well.
But stingy tips make it harder to recruit service workers, and that helps to set up a vicious cycle.
If the tip is great, and if it's not a very stable industry to work in, and there's also been all the virus concerns, a lot of people have left the service industry and not come back.
More restaurants are including suggested tips on the final check.
That actually does tend to help. It rubs some people the wrong way, but in general, I actually think these businesses and workers gain more than they lose when that's presented.
Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Business, for KCBS.
So what are you reading? I'm checking out the ratings on the new TVs, and it looks like Samsung, LG, and Sony got the best scores.
Just like last year. What about those new dynamic rooms?
High scores as well, but their prices are really high.
Did you check online?
Yeah, their prices were about the same.
Well, there's one place where we can get a hot deal on those top-rated models.
Where?
At Video Only. Check out the ratings on TVs.
I see. Video only scored better than the others.
So, if you want the best deal on the best TVs,
Then we should take our TV ratings and head over to top-rated Video Only.
At Video Only, you won't find huge stores with refrigerators or dishwashers, but you will find the best deals on the best TVs, soundbars, and home theater systems. Shop around, but then make sure you visit Video Only, because if you don't, you'll be sorry. In Mountain View, San Mateo, Dublin, and San Rafael. Video Only.
What if you could build a six-figure retirement income with almost half the money saved? You heard that right. Get a discount on your retirement, creating six-figure income with 40% less than traditional 401ks and mutual funds. Hi, I'm Brett Kitchen, best-selling author and star in a new Hollywood documentary called Baby Boomer Dilemma. In this film,
Stupid motorcycle.
Stanford. share a strange concept called the retirement discount. It gives you more retirement income with the same dollar saved, and your money is never at risk if the market crashes. That's right, if the market crashes 30%, you lose nothing. Even people who are on track have shifted money to this new strategy because it increases their retirement income or can allow them to stop working years sooner. So if you're over 50 and want a bigger, better retirement with less money, call to get a free copy of this brand new movie, The Baby Boomer Dilemma, at 1-800-960-8585. This is a $30 value. When you call today, you get it completely free. I'll even pay your shipping and handling, no credit card required. So don't delay, call right now. 1-800-960-8585. That's 1-800-960-8585. 1-800-960-8585.
Your home is a one-of-a-kind piece of art, a palette of design elements reflecting your personal aesthetic and functional needs. For over 20 years, All Natural Stone's exclusive collection of luxury tile, exotic and specialty natural stone, and masterfully engineered porcelain has been transforming homes into pieces of livable art. Visit one of All Natural Stone's 4 Bay Area showrooms in Berkeley, Dublin, Burlingame, San Jose, or at allnaturalstone.com and find your inspiration. You can dine in art, entertain in art, bathe in art, lounge in art, relax in art. You can live in art.
From the beginning, Meriweth Credit Union was created to provide a brighter financial future for you. We work hard for our members because they're our greatest strength.
Meriweth worked for me when I needed an auto loan for my first car.
When I need to make a mobile payment, Meriweth works for me.
Put our premier savings account to work for you, now paying up to 25 times the national average. Meriweth Credit Union, working for you today, tomorrow, together.
Nature Valley has helped restore access to 10,000 miles of national park trails, and we're on our way to restoring even more, because every mile is a new memory. Life happens out there. Nature Valley.
KCBS News Time, 3:58, time for traffic and weather together. And let's go to Shane Guinness live at Ferry Fest at the Richmond Ferry Terminal.
Okay, we do have a new problem right now in Santa Rosa. Things are not looking too good right now. Highway 101 southbound. This is just after Mendocino Avenue off-ramp. It's a crash that is off to the center divider. There is a person laying on the ground right now. Fire department and ambulance has not shown up yet, so traffic is quickly building up as you're approaching Mendocino Avenue. As you continue southbound on 101, though, everything looking really nice as you're making your way through Petaluma, all the way through Novato. Everything is really clear. Let's go back to Walnut Creek. We still have this crash right now, causing quite the delays. But first off, let's do your traffic report at 4:08.
And right now, just looking at temperatures stopping out into the mid-90s. We're going to drop on back down to the 50s across the board tomorrow. A cooler day, highs into the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We have traffic and weather together on the 8th. It is Saturday, June 11th, 2022, coming up on KCBS.
I'm Jeffrey Schaub in San Francisco at a rally organized by high school students who want an end to gun violence.
This is Matt Ziegler. Is racism a public health crisis? The city of Oakland thinks it is. I'm Chris Carlo. CBS News covers the world now.
When you need to know. KCBS AM, KFRC FM, and HD1, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Odyssey Station.
4 o'clock. This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Wendy Gillette in New York. Tens of thousands of Americans took part in over 400 March for Our Lives demonstrations across the country, pleading for changes in gun laws. The biggest was in Washington.
I'm Stacey Lynn on the National Mall, where a sea of people have spent their day with one unified message. Gun violence is obviously a raging issue, and no more lives need to be lost from this. They came from near and far to speak out.
Many people actually want the same thing, and just being here is like a powerful message on its own.
Holding signs.
My sign says protect kids, not guns.
And filled with hope.
Hoping for some change, and it seems like with the turnout today, it's going to happen. Stacey Lynn, CBS News, Washington.
There's a new record for gas prices, a national average of $5 a gallon, according to AAA.
Yes, drivers in some areas are paying more, maybe a lot more like in California, but AAA reports the $5 national average milestone passed early this morning.
We are experiencing changes in driving the car because it's expensive, so encouraging our children to ride their bikes more instead of driving.
John Cody, CBS News, Washington.
President Biden pledged in New Mexico that the federal government will pay for 100% of the emergency response after a controlled burn started by the Forest Service ignited a massive wildfire.
We have a responsibility to help the state recover, to help the families who've been here for centuries, and the beautiful northern New Mexico villages who can't go home, whose livelihoods have been fundamentally changed.
A new poll shows the nation is divided on who is behind the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
The poll suggests that more than half of Republicans still believe the deadly January 6th insurrection at the Capitol was a conspiracy by the left. A new Reuters Ipsos poll finds that 55% of Republicans believe the debunked idea that left-wing protesters led the riot to make former President Trump look bad. This as a House Select Committee begins its hearing over the attack on the Capitol, and Democrats have accused the former president of an attempted coup. The next hearing is Monday. Allison King, CBS News, Washington.
The son of former LA Dodgers player Steve Sax was one of 5 Marines killed during a training flight crash this week in California. CBS News correspondent Michelle Miller has more.
The 2 pilots and 3 crew chiefs were killed when their Osprey went down during a training mission in the California desert. The Marines were based at Camp Pendleton, just north of San Diego. The crew was taking part in a live fire training exercise. The cause of the crash is under investigation.
This is CBS News.
Get CBS News Radio on the Odyssey app. All the audio that matters to you is on Odyssey. News, music, sports, and podcasts. Download the Odyssey app today.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that's MediShare. You get both. The typical family saves $500 a month switching to MediShare. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. Because MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge PPO network, so yeah, really, you could save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. If you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, you just want a plan you're happy with. You can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number you need. Call 866-88-BIBLE. That's 866-88-BIBLE. 866-88-BIBLE.
Reunions are big business this year.
Remember the prom? Planners say high school reunion season, which generally runs from late spring to early fall, is about 25% busier than it would have been in a typical pre-pandemic year. Fran McLean at 5 Star Reunions tells the Wall Street Journal she's working on about 65 gatherings, up from 7 last year and just 1 in 2020. Driving the demand? Psychologists say it's a pent-up desire for connection, but they warn seeing former classmates after all those years, especially given the pandemic, can trigger heightened anxiety about things like weight gain and aging. Deborah Rodriguez, CBS News.
A dismal report about inflation that shows levels not seen in 40 years sent stock markets tumbling yesterday. All posted triple-digit losses. The Dow was down 880 points. The Nasdaq sank 414. The S&P lost 116. Wendy Gillette, CBS News.
It's 4:05 at the Bay Area's news station, KCBS. Still very hot, but a cool down on the way. Good afternoon. I'm Chris Ancarlo, and here's what's happening. Thousands are gathered in cities across America for what's being called a National Day of Action to End Gun Violence. KCBS's Jeffrey Schaub reports from one of those events at San Francisco City Hall.
Among the crowd of 1,000 or so, a young couple, Kaylin and Noah Miedema. They are the parents of 2 small children.
I have a 5-year-old daughter getting ready to start school, and I'm terrified. I'm terrified, absolutely.
She says it's time for action.
First, let's start with, a ban on assault rifles or assault guns in general. There's just no reason to have them. And I would like to see more mental health checks.
I have a list here of all-school shootings. It's ridiculous. You do. You're holding this sign right now, and you have a list of how many school shootings. You know what? Hundreds.
Yeah. Hundreds.
The San Francisco students who organized this rally represent the local chapter of the March for Our Lives organization. It was formed after the 2018 deadly shootings at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, where 17 students and staff died. Lowell High School senior Cal Kenosha.
There's been multiple major shootings since then, and we're still not getting any federal gun legislation. And
last week, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to reinstate a federal ban on assault weapons, but it has no future in the Senate, where bipartisan talks are underway to create much more limited anti-gun violence legislation. At San Francisco City Hall, Jeffrey Schaub, KCBS.
This week, the Oakland City Council declared racism a public health crisis. KCBS's Matt Bigler takes a look at what that exactly means.
The vote was unanimous. Oakland City Council members declaring racism a public health crisis.
I'm proud to support this legislation, and I'm going to work to make it real.
City Council member Carol Fife says just because Oakland is progressive doesn't mean they don't have a history of disenfranchisement of people of color. The resolution sets aside $350,000 to hire consultants and data analysts to find out just how racism has negatively impacted black and brown populations. Darlene Flynn is the director of the city's Department of Race and Equity.
Several reports on homelessness, and not one single mention of the disturbing overrepresentation of black residents of Oakland in homelessness.
A few other cities have also declared racism a public health crisis. Studies have shown that racism-related stress can lead to heart disease, cancer, and a weakened immune system. In the East Bay, Matt Bigler, KCBS.
Police in Oakland are trying to weed out guns by buying them back and turning them into gardening tools. The OPD is teaming up with local blacksmiths and the Colorado company Raw Tools to forge the guns into tools. Now, the first 50 people to turn into a firearm at the event today received a forged gardening tool right there on the spot, and everyone got a gift card ranging from $100 to $300. Officials say all of the firearms collected will ultimately be turned into gardening tools. KCBS News Time, 4:08, time for traffic and weather together, and let's start with Shane Guinness, who is live at Ferry Fest at the Richmond Ferry Terminal.
Okay, let's get started again on Santa Rosa, 101 southbound, just after Mendocino Avenue. There's a crash here that has the two left lanes blocked on the southbound side. Now, also, there's a lane blocked on the northbound side as well. So it's a really bad crash right now. We don't have the extent of the injuries, just the two left lanes are blocked on the southbound side. Fire department also has decided to block the left lane on the northbound side. So you're looking at slow traffic on the northbound at delays right now around Bicentennial Way. If you're traveling southbound trying to make it into Santa Rosa, look for those delays as you're approaching River Road. Your next traffic report will be at 4:18 on the traffic leader, KCBS.
91 degrees right now in Santa Rosa, 79 in Oakland. We have 89 in San Jose, 67 in San Francisco. And look for a little bit of haze here as we have, of course, these warm temperatures, warmest inland. Tonight will be partly cloudy in the evening, dropping down to the 50s across the board. More clouds along the coast, perhaps some fog after midnight. And then tomorrow, cooler with highs in the 60s around the bay, maybe some 70s in spots and 80s as you head further inland. Mostly cloudy by the coast and in some spots around the bay, then becoming partly cloudy throughout the day. Otherwise, sunny skies further inland. Traffic and weather together on the 8s on All News 106.9 and AM 740 KCBS. KCBS News Time, 4:10. More than 3,000 panels of the AIDS quilt are on display this weekend in Golden Gate Park. KCBS's David Welch reports it's the first outdoor display of the quilt in more than a decade and the largest in San Francisco history.
Mike Smith is the co-founder of the AIDS quilt. He says the goal of the display is simple.
We're transforming Robin Williams Meadow into the most colorful graveyard in San Francisco, and people will react that way to it. No matter who may be off playing games and sports somewhere in the park, when they come in here, you will be able to hear a pin drop through this whole thing.
Smith points out that the memorial didn't start out as a quilt. It began as a collection of plaques.
And when they got those handmade placards up on the front of the federal building, it looked like a giant quilt.
That quickly grew in both size and global significance as AIDS spread. 35 years later, Smith says the quilt is just as relevant.
We're in a much healthier place where people are living longer, but people continue to die of HIV and to become infected every day.
And Smith hopes the quilt will provide a broader message as well.
We're hoping that this is an example for the country of how to come together around things like COVID or even gun violence, which is really a health issue, and find a way to find common ground, to make it about individuals, to come at it from an angle of love, not to come at it in conflict.
In San Francisco, David Welch, KCBS.
Police in San Jose have seized an arsenal of weapons and thousands of rounds of ammunition from the home of a homicide suspect during a search earlier this week. The department says they've recovered more than 65 firearms, of which about 25 were illegal assault weapons. Also, they found multiple high-capacity magazines and thousands of rounds of ammunition from the home of the suspect. Now, he was arrested last Sunday in connection with a fatal shooting in San Jose back last week, about a week ago on June 4th. Police obtained a search warrant for him.